Wars Battlefront 2 is making a huge resurgence right now, and rightfully so. I won't be the first to talk about this, and surely will not be the last, as right now the campaign to push for a Battlefield 3 is in full swing by the community. But having had multiple videos push this video back by a few days now at this point, I just wanted to talk about it no less. Huge Star Wars fan, have been my entire life. The initial loading sequence pinging noise from the original Battlefronts, if you know what I'm talking about, that's like a sleeper agent code for me. So to get the chance to talk about Battlefront, a Star Wars shooter, yes please. So the game has had a revitalization recently, with player counts reportedly across all platforms peaking recently over 176,000 concurrent players, and is still apparently holding strong, with Steam, even right now as of recording this and grabbing this screenshot, during the workday of the week is less than 1,000 players off its peak all-time player count on Steam. Of course, that dwarfs in comparison to that apparently peaking 176,000 concurrent players, but you also have to consider the game is on Xbox. It's on Game Pass, it's on PlayStation, Steam, the EA launcher and all. So that number obviously is going to be inflated across multiple different platforms. Former devs have even talked about how that's probably pretty close to accurate from the dev portals and everything they have access to, that the game is very much alive, maybe as much alive as it ever has been. And that's crazy to consider because it's nearly 8 years after the game's launch. Like that's crazy. Everywhere you look, you'll probably see right now somebody commenting Battlefield 3 or a meme of something similar relating to it, calling for the attention to the cause. To the point where when I woke up a day or two ago, I saw a TikTok from a clip of Home Improvement, you know, the Tim Allen show from the 90s, and it had a flood of comments about Battlefront 3. The people yearn for more Battlefront. But why is it this way? Why is it being played this much now with such a heavy push for a sequel? Why today? I think for a lot of people, it could be the Andor effect. In my opinion, some of the best Star Wars media ever just finishing up, having record-breaking viewership numbers and ratings, people are going to be wanting to dive deeper into more Star Wars stuff. Aside from the Jedi games, also incredible, but single player, Battlefront 2 is one of the most recent multiplayer games of the franchise. Star Wars Squadrons also being there, but probably not scratching the itch for a certain type of playstyle, but that's kind of crazy to consider, and we'll come back to that point a little bit later in the video. But also, because it's a good game. Graphically, just right up front here, it is in 2025 still holding up incredibly well. If there's one thing that DICE knows how to do well every single time, it's make a beautiful game that is visually stunning. With their skill set to build out the worlds from Battlefield, I personally think it translated perfectly to Battlefront 2 and the worlds of Star Wars, with each landscape feeling like you're actually playing from these places in the movies, and you're a part of that world that is Star Wars. And frankly, gameplay and content-wise, it's finally the game that I think that it should have been from the very beginning. If you guys remember, there was a lot of controversy for this game whenever it was in beta and then into its initial launch here. One of the big factors of that was the star cards, the upgrade and progression system for your characters, both your regular sort of classes of your base characters, but also into your more universally known or upgraded characters. These star cards were previously heavily tethered to loot boxes and a pay-to-win mechanic out of all of that. The good stuff was all in there. It got to the point where, I don't know if you remember, but like in the age of supply drops and loot boxes, the first real domino to fall was a part of Battlefront 2. It got to the point where the governing boards of, I think it was Belgium, were investigating EA for predatory practices. And still, this is relatively fresh off the Disney acquisition of Star Wars in the grand scheme of things. It was about 5 years after at that point, but it was shortly after Episode 5 and was upcoming for Episode 8. So Disney, of course, had a huge spotlight on the Star Wars IP, and they're not too keen on when that image is questioned that they have. So they reeled it back, they removed the ability to buy these credits for this stuff and gutted it entirely, but obviously a lot of the core game, the elements of that were built around that system, so it was a weird limbo period for a little bit. But backlash and a lackluster launch aside, removing it to be a more bare bones version of the game and making it just a large scale multiplayer game for the Star Wars franchise, after years, I'd say that around episode 9 and the tail end of that content support window is when the game, I think, was really just really worth playing and in a great state. So to have a revitalization now without those rough patches from the earlier portions of the game's launch in the forefront of your memory, is pretty nice to have. Like, you just know of the good stuff at this point, which is really cool. Now it plays like a massive multiplayer Star Wars game, something like a Battlefield but Star Wars, and a bit more elements to it with some of the character selections. But like content, there's still so much. You've got game modes across Supremacy with the Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance covering the different movies. You've got heroes and villains with Hero Starfighters and Hero Showdown as sub-game modes of that. You've got Galactic Assault, Starfighter Assault, Blast, and more. You've got a single-player campaign that I think is pretty solid. For anyone who may have watched The Mandalorian but didn't play Battlefront 2, Bill Burr's Miggs Mayfield character brings up Operation Cinder. That's from Battlefront 2's campaign. So when you take all this kind of stuff, you see how much Disney is investing into Star Wars to just pump out and probably milk the Star Wars IP. It surprises the hell out of me that in this day and age, we don't have something new like a Battlefront 3. And if you look at the announced and rumored Star Wars projects and IP, we just had Andor Season 2, we just had Tales of the Underworld, Ahsoka Season 2 is happening, Vision Season 3 is happening, The Mandalorian and Grogu movie is happening, there's Star Wars Starfighter with Ryan Gosling for 2027, there's Lando, there's Dawn of the Jedi, there's Star Wars New Jedi Order, Rogue Squadron, A Droid Story, The Ninth Jedi, movies being made by Taika Waititi, Dave Filoni, a trilogy apparently by Simon Kinberg. Ryan Johnson still wants to do more, and, well, do I need to go on and on? Like, all of this and more likely, yet we still don't have a killer, up-to-date multiplayer game for the franchise. Apparently, Knights of the Old Republic's remake is still kicking, though radio silence on the public announcement side of things here. Star Wars Eclipse was announced in late 2021, and not a single shred of information has come out to date on that yet. Not to mention how much more cool stuff you could add that has already happened. Like, despite all the mixed feelings of stuff within the Star Wars universe since content has ceased support for Battlefront 2, with Andor finishing up, like, God, how cool would that be to see in Battlefront? So obviously, people want to see a Battlefront 3, and there's definitely that demand for it, and this is still, I think, relatively a niche thing. If they came out and said, hey, Battlefront 3 is coming out, put a marketing push out there, I think a lot of people would really be interested in this, and it would garner a ton of hype. If you have this sort of excitement and enthusiasm emanating from a player base that is still playing a game that hasn't seen support in, what, like 5 years or something like that? Imagine if in this new age of when everything is being marketed as heavy as it is, that you had a new game. It would do wonders, I think. But okay, how possible is this? Of course, no matter what, it is years away. That's something we have to consider. It's not going to be something like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, we've been working on Battlefront 3 in the background for years. Nobody said anything. And, you know, with this hype now, it's a good way to announce Battlefront 3 is coming out next year. Not going to be the case. DICE is, of course, working on what appears to be named Battlefield 6. That obviously is taking up a huge part of what they have on their table, but obviously the interest of the community is there. It's creating buzz. It's something that is probably being talked about in the upper echelons of the executive suites for both EA and maybe even Disney. Who knows? Former developers on the game have even come out and said they want to get the band back together to create another game. But at the earliest, it is still years away. As of recording this, there's no specific guarantee that EA or the bigger picture of Disney is really considering it at the moment. I bet they've probably seen some of the sort of numbers of what this is pulling at the moment, but with enough hype, maybe it gets to the point where people want to talk about it, but then you have to go through the red tape of greenlighting a project, getting the project team onboarded, developing the game for years, then revealing and releasing. Former devs have actually pushed the idea of a more friendly approach to this that would include something of a more, I don't want to say quicker timetable for a Battlefront 3, but gives us something more so in the immediate future to look forward to. A Battlefront 2 remaster, then followed by a Battlefront 3, where their plan would be something like a Battlefront 2 remaster on whatever the next gen console is in 2027, 2028. They stated the dev time for these games is roughly 2 to 3 years, but that they'd also have a laundry list of improvements that they'd want to put into Battlefront 2. And updating it was something they always wanted to continue to do. But once they get that showcased as a success, they end up releasing a remaster here where it can garner that hype. There's meaningful game changes to buy the game again and have it in a more polished state. But again, on next gen as well, that's when it'd be something that would prove financially feasible. Then you start work on 3. They said the team would be then familiar with the engine, assets, and could then get things developed in a shorter time frame as a result, fresh off of working on a rebuild and remastering 2. So 5 to 6 years, but who knows? Maybe it's possible. So is it something that in the immediate future we should expect to see at Battlefront 3? Absolutely not. Is it something that could never even amount to a Battlefront 3? Perhaps, but you know, just like the Rebellion, Battlefront 3 is built on hope. So at the very least, in the meantime, jump on, check it out if you haven't seen it already. If I'm not mistaken, it's been, at least on Steam, cheaper than the original launch price for quite some time now at this point, where I think you can pick it up for like 40 bucks. Still a lot, but it is something that is a ton of fun. So if you would like to check it out, it is available there. But at the very least, if you want to check it out, if you have it already, jump on and play, because right now you're seeing the biggest resurgence that we've seen in years for this game, where it is an all-around, or at least for the most part, enjoyable community to be a part of. Everybody is really gung-ho and hyped about the game at the moment, and it's just a lot of fun. So you're not going to have any problems finding matches. You can just jump in and immerse yourself in the Star Wars world. So just want to talk a little bit about Battlefront 3, maybe do my part here to hopefully push forward in some of the communicating for, hey, maybe Battlefront 3 can happen. So love to get your thoughts and feedback down below. Have you been playing Battlefront? Have you been following any of this saga of pushing for a sequel? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things, maybe more Battlefront content. I put up some like actual just like live messing around with my friends on the second channel. I gotta get back to posting on that kind of thing. So might see more stuff there. Maybe we'll put more up here on the main channel. Let me know, but drop your thoughts, drop a like if you guys enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe for more. For now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.